welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I'm your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL round review. And ladies and gentlemen, the loveliness that is Gather Round has come. It has gone all 9 games in South Australia, lovely South Australia, whether it was the Barossa Valley, whether it was the parade at Norwood or Adelaide Oval. As per usual, gather around a wonderful, wonderful footy event. And as tradition, the last few years that we've had gather round, we have Dave from the Creed back. Dave, great to see you, sir. How was gather round? How much fun? Because I know you attended several games while they were in your lovely Adelaide, South Australia.
As it was last year, which was my first experience of gather round in person, it was incredible. A little bit scratchy today after there's a fair bit of libations enjoyed across the weekend. I went to Friday night, I went to Saturday in the Barossa, and then of course I went to see my Port Adelaide Footy Club continue to struggle last night. So yeah, it's just a great event. Just to see my home state, my city that I'm proud to be from, and see it all lit up as the beacon of the football world. And even for us in Australia, it's the beacon. So we get a lot of attention from interstate, where you sometimes have to struggle to get through the VFL media. But then, of course, you being someone that watches from afar over in the US, seeing it for the footy fans around the world, seeing them come in and their eyes are focused on South Australia and all the wonderful things about the state. It's really a time of great pride as a South Australian footy fan.
Always, always fantastic. It's an incredible event. Again, I'm not one to hop into politics, but what Peter Malinauskas has done for South Australia and for Adelaide, it's been incredible. Like, I mean, I've even heard some Vic media, some Victorians in Vic media going, why can't he run the country if he runs South Australia the way he does? Why can't he run the country? So,
Mhm.
I think there's a few people leaning for Peter to become the premier of all of Australia at the pace he's going, because again, he's doing a fantastic job, very personable. Love when they talk with him, because I think he's just an incredibly proud South Australian and has done a lot for Adelaide and South Australia, not only for the footy, but I mean, I know several things that he's been bringing to South Australia. I know Live Golf has come there with there, so he's just done an incredible job. So we'll get out of
Got
politics.
MotoGP out
That's,
of we
yeah,
got
the
MotoGP from
MotoGP.
Victoria
Yep.
as well, so that's a little bit of a kick a Vic thing back to footy. Like, yeah, you stole our F1, we'll take your MotoGP.
Yeah, no, I 100% get it. So it's great. So we'll get out of politics. We'll hop to it again. Gather around us calm. It has gone as per usual. Before we go to the punch by punch, each of the games, your thoughts as a whole. Gather round.
It was again the spectacle of it, and the we kind of got to realize that it works rain, hail, or shine, because last year we had some incredibly hot weather, which people were kind of like, oh, this is a bit rough. It was like some 35-degree days Celsius here for some of the games. This year, of course, we had a fairly persistent rain system kind of hanging around and dumping. Wasn't consistent like all throughout games, but you had some lashing rain drop in periods. But it didn't dampen the spirits of those going to the games. Of course, we got announced that there was 270,000 across the round, so the fans still turned up in record numbers. The games, I think, as you and I kind of have a brief discussion off air, probably the one area to work on for Gather Round is getting the matchups better. Maybe rewarding some teams with some Adelaide Oval games that haven't got them. But, there's still some intrigue in games, some surprising results, of course, that I'm sure we'll get to, and some close results, even if they might have been somewhat games for purists. You and I being purists, we enjoyed them still. But,
Mhm.
yeah, it was maybe a mixed bag of results, not the most memorable ones. Of course, last year we had the round finish out with the Port Hawthorn and the Ken Hinkley stuff and Jack Ginnivan and all that. So there was kind of some drama there and what's going to happen here. And last night, of course, there was some drama, just not just come out after the game. So yeah, but I think that's the good thing about Gather Round is because it is just a celebration of footy. It's fans getting together. Like I've said to a few people, working, I live and work in the Barossa, so I'm seeing a lot of footy fans from interstate come into the area. I've kind of been talking to them about their excitement for it and what they're excited for, and a lot of them are just like, "Oh, see my team in the Brisbane fans that are in the area, just see my team in the Barossa Valley." That some of them, a lot of them, are the first time they've been here. Um, and we've kind of had the discussion about how like going to the neutral games, it's just fun as a fan. Like if you have a certain team and you're always going to their games, there's an inherent stress in going to games because you're always going with
Mhm.
a result that you want. Whereas when you like going to Collingwood Freo on Friday night, like I obviously was rooting for Freo because Collingwood, I root against almost every time. Um, Crows Collingwood games are a tough watch, but going to games, particularly Brisbane Kangaroos on Saturday, was just like it's just fun to go and watch a game and enjoy the athletes that are out there, like not whether it be Lockie Neal or the Ashcrofts or Cooper Trembath. When I'm watching them play Port, I can't enjoy them as athletes. Whereas part of the celebration of footy thing is you just get to go and enjoy some players that play for other teams that usually you're kind of rooting against when you're following your team, but you can just go and enjoy and celebrate footy and the goodness that is footy outside of the stress of your own team. And that was again kind of my real conversations I had a lot, and a lot of the enjoyment I got out of the weekend was just the communal aspect of it and the celebration.
Yep, I 100% agree. And just seeing all the colors and seeing, for the most part, like I know so many people say that you have all these intense rivalries between these clubs, but the there's almost a good harmony amongst everybody. Like there's very real little dramas. I haven't heard of any that I've heard of any biffs or problems amongst fan bases. Like everybody gets along. Everybody gets along. So it just it does have that really good carnival feel where everybody's just having fun, enjoying it. You barrack for your team. You enjoy some games you maybe weren't going to see in person. You might have seen them on the telly, but in person
Mm-hmm.
and get to enjoy some of the superstars that you may not get to see as much because you're focused on your team and what happens with your side that you barrack for. So no, 100% again. I think this has been nothing but a good thing. I know Peter Volandis loves to scream that it's a ripoff of Magic Round, which again, it may have started as that, but there is a different feel to it because unlike the NRL, there isn't as many states involved. You don't have Perth. You don't have South Australia in that. Yes, you got the three East Coast states with Victoria because you count Melbourne with the Melbourne Storm, but it's not the same. There's even more states that are involved, and eventually we're going to get Tasmania, which I know is becoming a whole new discussion now, is that if there's only 19 teams, what's the one team that doesn't get to experience gather round? So
Or
how's
what's
that going to
what's
go?
the
Yep.
one team that gets to play twice?
Yeah, or that. Yeah, yeah. So that'll be the fun one too. So it's be very interesting. So no, I think gather around has been nothing but good. We'll save the discussion points maybe for a little bit later. We'll kind of roll it all together with one of the burning question discussions. Let's get right into the games. We'll start off, which I was a little terrified for this one. Adelaide Crows versus Carlton. The Crows get a win 114-86, but I will say this. I know it's not easy for you as a Port fan to compliment Adelaide. So I want you to throw their compliments at Carlton. This has been a team that has faded in the second half. Third and fourth quarters have been disastrous for Coach Voss. I know it's another loss. I get that. I'm trying to be positive for the Blue Baggers here. They didn't fade. They really stayed in this game. They pushed a Crows team that again, is this the greatest Crows team? No. They still have some injuries. They're still not 100%. Again, you got to say the weather got a little interesting at a couple of time periods, which I think inhibited scoring, which I think helped keep Carlton from getting blown out in this one. Again, not trying to kick you, Blue Baggers. I'm really not. But I appreciate that a few changes. I know the George Hewitt dropping threw a lot of people off, but it did kind of get some of the results that Voss was doing. Did it get them a W? No. Did it show that maybe their midfield isn't just one paced? Maybe. I think Sam Walsh was a lot better in this game. He still, after the first quarter, he wasn't really doing the same things he did in the first quarter. I don't know. Your thoughts on this, Dave? Again, not easy to. I know it's not easy to compliment Adelaide as the Port man that you are, but good game of footy. Carlton showed some fight, which I got to give maybe Patrick Voss a little bit of a tick on that because this group showed some fight after, like I said, the selection shakeup with Georgie Hewitt being dropped.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree that they kind of and what they kept on saying when it was pre-game interviews with Chris Davies, former Port Adelaide head, but was on TV pre-game and they were asking him the question of the Hewitt dropping, and he kind of said it's just a mix thing, and that's what we talk about on our podcast a lot with Port Adelaide's midfield malaise is just you got it. Sometimes it's just trying different mixes and seeing what works with the different skill sets that guys in the center bounce and around stoppage can provide, and Yeah, you go George Hewitt's doing, former best and fairest and had a pretty good game the week before, but you're not getting the results and you're fading out of the games. You've got to try a different mix, and that's the structural decision they made. And they get a great first quarter out of Sam Walsh. They get a great first quarter out of Patrick Cripps, but then they leave Patrick Cripps on the bench for 6 minutes at the start of the second quarter, and the Crows storm back into the game. So then that makes you question the mix thing again. But that's an in-game coaching decision. But yeah, they had their moments, and then they did try to stage a comeback late, which is goes against type from the first month of the season as well. So gave the Crows maybe a tiny scare, even though I don't think it got closer than maybe 15, 16 points, which
Mm,
close, pretty close in a modern AFL. You can kick 3 goals pretty quick, but yeah, the Crows ultimately just yeah, they kind of found a few things themselves. I think Josh Riccelli
mhm.
is, and this is me being objective and giving plaudits. I think he's maturing into a really, really good footballer.
Yep.
He's still got the flair with the celebrations and stuff, and I've got no
Mhm.
problem with the celebrations. It's I think he's even admitted in media he sometimes thought about the celebrations too much, and now he's just letting his footy do the talking and then enjoying the celebrations after. And he's getting the 25 odd disposals, kicking 4 goals, getting clearances. I think he had 6 clearances in the game, so that's a really really promising game from the sixth pick from 4 years ago now.
Mhm.
He's kind of maturing into the player exactly who they need. They still probably their midfield still needs some things, and they probably want to get a bit more out of Rankin sooner rather than later. But Riccelli popping up in that kind of game winning role, both in the midfield as well as the goal scoring, is really, really promising for Adelaide. Not looking forward to a showdown if he's in that kind of form and we're playing the way we are.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm 100% with you. I think Rankin, Rochelle has kind of played the Rankin role so far this year. Like he's
Mm,
been really, really good. And what he's doing is what I think a lot of people were expecting Isaac Rankin to do, that he would come back full of wanting to make up for how kind of things went through again. We won't go into the specifics on that, but I think
mm,
a lot of people thought that was the way it was going to go. And Rochelle's kind of taken everything by the horn, taken the proverbial bull by the horns, and has really taken over that spot. So they haven't missed Rankin not playing as well because Rochelle is in good form. The scary part to think about is that if Rankin gets to that form and Rochelle maintains it, it's a scary thought process of either of those two playing that striker-ish midfield push forward role. Could be a scary thought for the competition if they've got two of them that could both do it at the same
mm,
time, because you've already got one of the elite kicks in Jordan Dawson. They're starting to figure it out. They're gonna get healthier when Keane comes back, when Dan Curtin comes back, who was a revelation last year, kind of showing why he was as top a pick as he was, why Adelaide moved up in the draft to get him.
mm,
It's kind of scary to think that the part that does hurt is Mitch Hinge comes back and then re-injures himself. That kind of
mm,
sucks because this is a backline that's still they're being held together with any adhesive Adelaide can do. Now, they're still decent. I mean, Josh Worrell's really good. Laird coming back has been great off the flank position. So, but again, Keane's still out. So there's still some missing pieces of that defense last year that was really, really good at times for the Crows.
mm,
And with Carlton, I 100% agree with you. As much as it sucks that somebody has to get dropped, sometimes that message is sent. The first quarter, you saw it. The second, third, and fourth quarters, it kind of went back to what it has been. Not as bad. As you said, no fade. They really stayed in the game. They didn't let it get blown out to 40, 50, 60 points, which there for a while it was looking like it could potentially.
mm.
So no, I just I hate it. I don't want to say it, but I think Michael Voss's days at Carlton are numbered. I think
Yeah.
I will be shocked if he gets through the end of the year. I will say that. I don't want to say that as somebody that's coached and somebody that loves the coaching fraternity. I think way too many times it's easy to blame the coach when sometimes there's more to it. But
Mm,
I just if it goes the way it usually goes, I don't see Michael Voss staying at that in that seat very much longer. And it sucks to say it because he's a great and yeah, so I won't wax lyrical too much on that, especially considering let's move to the game that you and I pre-mic we both said we enjoyed this game because we're footy nuffies. We love I love the tactical moves, the different changes. This game had a little bit of everything. It was dry, it was wet, it was mucky, it was an arm wrestle, it was a slog, it was every single term that you could think of. As the Fremantle Dockers escape with a 6 point win, beating the Collingwood Magpies 45-39. Again, Dave, you and I, these are the games we love, but you got to admit, the wider footy media, this one was ugly.
Yeah, it was, and I can understand people like if you're just tuning in and wanting to see, particularly these two teams with a fair few stars and playing, it's particularly the way the game had gone the night before. You're like, oh, gather around energy. There's going to be, but I think the combined score from the first quarter of Carlton Adelaide was almost the combined score of this entire game. So it's
Yeah,
just two polar opposites, but. Yeah, like you said, I get enjoyment out of it because I enjoy just footy and the test that it can provide, and I think this was an incredible test of resilience from two sides, and it's really highlighted by that fourth quarter where you see, Lockie Schultz hit the post when he should have hit. Dan
mhm,
McStay, this was all down the end. I was standing on the hill for the game, so I watched that Lockie Schultz kind of mark and think, or I can't remember if it's free kick or a mark, but either way, the set shot that hit the post, I was thinking, oh no, they're going to kick this and put the game away, and then he misses, and then Dan McStay misses one. I think Nick Dacos did as well, and us on the hill were like, oh no, this is still on, and then Freo just took that, and in a polar opposite on the other end, Freo just took two incredible chances that Jai Amos kicked 50, which was
mhm,
incredible, and watching it from the other end, just seeing how the wind took it, and I almost took it to a point, but
yeah,
he somehow, in some form of footy miracle, was able to negotiate those conditions perfectly, and of course Matt Johnson as well, and so you had one team, fade under the Friday night lights, and the other one kind of stood up in just small moments that mattered. And then Alex Pearce, um, the captain, just inspiring again late as well. And then to your point about coaching moves and little things that happen in games, like Josh Tracy going back and taking an incredible mark in the rain after a game where handling the ball was so difficult, he just those two big hands go up
yeah.
and just make that mark a no doubter.
Yep, the big kahuna. Like I remember hearing a story, I can't remember what show I was watching, that they said that the the backs last year for Fremantle decided to do a team dinner together, and they invited Josh Tracy because so many times he came back and helped them out. So it's like there's something. Coach Longmuir is doing something at Fremantle. I know that they were the smoky for a lot of experts, and I'll do the for those just listening the air quotes for that one because everybody says they're an expert, and then so many are proven wrong in many ways. I like this Fremantle side. They're gritty, they're tough. They've shown some abilities. It's tough to go out to Western Australia and win at Optus Stadium, especially when Fremantle is up and about. So for them to get another win on the road against a Collingwood team that everybody says travels, all their fans travel. Again, I don't think you see as big an impact when it comes to the travel gather round because so many neutrals want to go to the games that sometimes you don't get the big fan bases of each of the sides, which I think makes the atmosphere even a little bit more interesting because the fans kind of go with the flow of the game, which I absolutely love. But no, this was a good. I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know the scores for those that love offense probably not their favorite, probably not one people are going to remember at the end of the year, but the
I think it
tactical.
was
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, just you said score. There was a stat I saw. I think it was scores from inside 50s were like at 22.6%, which is the lowest number ever recorded since they've been recording the percentage of scores per inside 50. So that just to your point highlights just how low scoring it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it still made for an interesting. It also was, I think, one of three matches that I think Sir Swamp Thing put up on Twitter that have like the margin was always single digits. It never got out beyond
Mhm.
9 points after the entire game. So it remained tight. So for us there on the hill, even though we're watching a game where there's not much scoring, it was like, well, this game could go any way because it's only going to take that 5 minutes that Fremantle got at the end where they did kick the two goals to get themselves
Mhm.
in front. That's all it was going to take at any point during that game to swing it. So
Yep.
that
Yep.
kept it interesting and ultimately made
Yep.
for a really, really energetic ending and a really fun vibe at the game. As Fremantle are defending to the death at the end, the vibe on the hill was really strong. Frio chant going up with us neutrals out there and joining in with the Frio faithful. And then the cheers as they cleared the back line in that last 30 seconds, the cheers that popped up as everyone realized they were going to win was really cool. So
Yep.
the energy was still great.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely love it. So I want to move on. Let's head up to the Barassa. I'm interested on this one because this was a game I was somewhat terrified for because the North faithful have gotten up and about. It is fascinating and fun to see the North faithful starting to gain some confidence in their side. Some people would say, well, coach, wouldn't this result really hurt him? I don't think so. Like I maybe this is me, maybe this is the positivity out of this whole thing, but I think North showed a lot of grit in this game. They really pushed this Brisbane Lions team. Again, is this the best Brisbane Lions have looked? No. Dan Zarko goes down, which I think throws off their ball movement a little bit. They still get the 26-point win. Brisbane win by 26, 92-66. But again, I take more positives for North out of this because, man, Cooper Trenbath, holy crap, what a mark on the goal line. That was insane. But I love the get after of this North side. You're starting to see the influence of Clarko a little bit now. I think they're finally starting to get it. I think the message is starting to get it. You're seeing the growth of Sheasel. You're seeing the growth of Dersma. You're seeing LDU be LDU that everybody saw. I know it's weird. Again, Brisbane, fantastic win. They get the results. I mean, you've got the Ashcroft brothers, Lockie Neal, again, one of the smoothest operators when it comes to the midfield. I think Sam Draper is finally starting to be himself because you're finally starting to see Sam Draper that we saw at Essendon, where he could just absolutely go bonkers at times. So it's scary to think. I think Brisbane's only going to get better as this season goes on, as they get healthy, as they get some more continuity. Great to see Harris Andrews back again. Sucks that the suspension happened. It was more. I think it was more accidental than it was on purpose. But with the concussion issue, it's going to happen, unfortunately. And again, it's a footy accident. But this is a Brisbane team. Once they get healthy, they're going to be scary. But like I said, my confidence in North is we're seeing the growth. This is a side. If they click, they're still not 100% there, but once they click, they could be a scary, dangerous side come the latter half of the year, even maybe pushing for those two spots for the wild card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had Cooper Trembath on one of the shows I was watching earlier, and he kind of said that, like, they asked, "Oh, what are your aims for this year? Are you guys wanting to make finals, like get the wild card spot at least?" And he said, "No, absolutely. Like, we have faith in ourselves to be able to be that kind of team." And he said, like, if we can even finish higher, but he's a little bit of realistic and maybe not trying to fly too close to the sun yet. But they certainly, to your point, have reasons to have that faith. It's kind of like the North faithful getting that belief. You made me think of that scene in the Matrix where what's happening, and it's like Morpheus is like he's starting to believe, and you just see that in how North are kind of
Mhm.
the way they're playing. You've got Luke Parker playing. It was so funny. Like I was on the outer, obviously I was in the Barossa for the game on Saturday, and as someone who's grown up going to Linddock for different reasons, seeing the town transform with that oval and the energy that's there is really, really cool because Linddock's such a beautiful little town. It's a smaller town, though, but a beautiful town with nice pub and a brewery there as well, which I frequented again this year as I did last year. Not to the detriment that I did to myself last year, but it was still enjoyable. But there was a guy on the outer standing on the I guess the opposite end to where Trembath took his mark, and but there was a Brisbane fan every time they kicked it towards the defense. Luke Parker popped up, I think, 2 or 3 times in a few minutes, taking a kind of intercept mark, and just this Brisbane fan went, "Oh, fucking Parker again!" And it's just like he's come in and is having a massive impact as well. And it's like, and even Parker said in media recently, he's like, "I'm not here to kind of sail off into the sunset. I am here to like bring on
Mhm.
some success while I'm here." So there's this belief there that and Jack Darling, they've like a couple of years ago when Darling and Parker came in, it was just like these guys are just going there to kind of on the scrap heap, but they're actually playing a role and bringing these guys with them. Jai Simpkin gets to run with Roland Will Ashcroft, and and gets 27 of his own touches while keeping Ashcroft
Hmm.
to 20. Ashcroft still has an impact, but it's reduced. So they tried a few things and worked out a few things and were able to kind of stay competitive. Brisbane's class ultimately shone out, and Brisbane are kind
Yep.
of are so experienced having gone to three grand finals in a row. They know that a season is a marathon. You've kind of got to you just got to get the runs on the board, so to speak, in cricket parlance. It doesn't matter how pretty they are at the start of the season. What
Hmm.
matters is the result at the end. So they're just banking the wins. They're not not playing perfect footy. They've got a few injury troubles or suspension troubles as well, but they're just banking the wins, staying with the top eight, and their class will shine out as the season
Yep.
goes on. If obviously injuries are kind.
Yep. To use cricket parlay, they're putting one or two runs on, just making sure,
Mm-hmm.
taking a few bowls, knowing that eventually the wicket's going to change and they're going to be able to smack some sixes. So no,
Mm-hmm.
100%. They are smart. Them and Geelong the last few years have been the ones where they may not start the greatest, but they always seem to click round 20, round 18, and then they go on those runs and get to finals, and then in the finals it's a slugfest. But no, 100%. Brisbane did what they needed to do, but again, if I'm a North fan, I'm absolutely, it sucks to lose 100%, but if you're going to lose to the premiers, if you're going to give them an almighty crack, I 100%. And for anybody that said Luke Parker went to North to sail out, there's no way. That's not Luke Parker.
Mm-hmm.
I've I had the pleasure of watching him play at Sydney for so many years. I love the guy to death. Did not want to see him go. It was just they had so many young midfielders. He was the
Mm-hmm.
veteran that they were okay with leaving. And I remember going on a North podcast and saying, I said, he's going to be sneaky good for you because he can play anywhere you want him. If you want him to go forward, he can kick goals. If you want him through the midfield, he will get the footy and he will get it to Sheasel, Simpkin, LDU. He'll get it there. Trust me, he will do that. And now he's found this little niche, a lot like Rory Laird at Adelaide. He's went to that halfback flanker, that halfback role, and has absolutely been sensational for them. So Jack
Mm-hmm.
Darling has been the surprise because I think if we watch him last year, he was not good. He was not good last year. He started to kind of accept his role to be that kind of second banana behind Nick Larkey, and it's starting to work. He's putting in extra efforts. He's putting in those one percenters that he maybe didn't do the year before, and it's giving more success. And then, like I said, you're finding these randoms like Cooper Trenbath, who was playing second divisions in Northern Victoria less than what, 18 months ago. Like holy,
Yeah,
like
there's some conspiracy theories about that.
so
North
it's
stashed him there. We were talking about it at the game on Saturday, and then the journalist on TV asked him about, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Drew Jones or someone like that on Fox Footy. Just asked like
mhm.
about that. Like, did you guys have a little wink, nudge, nudge kind of deal going on there that they're going to stash you just so they could pick you up in the mid-season? And Trent Barth kind of let that one go through to the keeper. But hey,
Yep.
look, Port Adelaide did some things like that when we came into the competition to make sure we got like Burgoyne and Treadray and co. So sometimes you got to do a few little things
Yeah, it's
to
well,
get the
and
players you want.
some
Yeah.
and sometimes you just get a player that just clicks. Like how many people were expecting Tom McCarthy to go from playing VFL footy to being one of the West best halfback flankers in the competition for a three
Mhm.
or 4 week span last year, and he's still again showing that. And he was one of those that I know he had an interview with the Rush Hour in Victoria that said, he goes, I just didn't put my full effort into my footy. He goes, when I did, he goes, it led to success. Sometimes you just Lawson Humphreys was a reserves waffle player and now is
Mhm.
a starter for the Geelong Cats. So
Yeah.
sometimes you just find a guy that clicks with your system and it just works.
Mhm.
So like
Yeah, and player development isn't linear either. Some guys just develop at different
yes.
rates. I think Trent
Hmm.
Barth even said himself that he put a bit more time into his body after maybe not giving that full dedication. So he's reaping those rewards. And yeah, that mark was pretty cool to see in person. I was at the opposite end of the field and still could see it pretty clearly because he rose up into the clouds there. So
Yep.
yeah, that was really that was a very cool gather round moment to watch that happen
Yep.
in
Nope.
person.
Yep. Nope. 100%. So let's move to probably what many people would say was the shocker of all of Gather Round as the Essendon Bombers win Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I will repeat that moment for all you Bomber faithful. The Dons won. I'm still stunned because I will raise my hand on this. I went to sleep because I knew that the next game after this was the Swans, which started about 1 a.m. my time. So I needed to get a nap because there was no way I was getting through all of the footy in one day in one night without getting a little bit of sleep. So I went to bed. I woke up for the last minute of this game and I was speechless. There were no words because if you look at everything that Essendon had done prior to this game, you would bank that Melbourne would win this game and win it easily. So for this to be a 45-point win for the Essendon Bombers, 113-68, I had to go back and watch the highlights because I just didn't see how this was possible. Like none of it made any sense. So talk me through this because I know you've probably watched this. When I went back and watched this, it was like the Twilight Zone because
Hmm.
Essendon looked like Melbourne and Melbourne looked like Essendon. It was this weird switch of Guernseys that I just did not expect. Again, Max Gone was Max Gone. Causey Pickett and Latrell Pickett were again incredible, but everybody else was off. And Essendon absolutely pounced on it. Zach Merritt was back to Zach Merritt, which was incredible to see. I know he's been good, but I don't think he's risen. There's still some kind of hangover from the off season, but Nate Caddy and Isaac Kako looks like exactly what everybody was saying. These incredible young talents that can absolutely take over a game when they want to.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a two-sided thing that you get. Uh, excuse me. You get the veterans and the talent from Essendon actually step up and get it together,
Hmm.
assisted by some good young talent, a few little positional change things as well, just trying different things. And then you also get the young Melbourne are a young rebuilding side still. I think they've kind of their buzz at the start of the year has made people kind of move past that already. But it's like they had their first test and kind of this will be good for Melbourne going forward. But they did get tested, and some of those young players kind of just didn't probably understand how to deal with it in the moment. Like because
Hmm.
they probably went into the game thinking this team should be relatively beatable, which is always a dangerous thing. And I'm sure they had the respect for the opposition, but you still do go in with an underlying understanding of where this team is. And Essendon have been in the absolute doldrums. I mean, if Essendon had lost this game, it was going to set a new club record for games lost in a row. So that's
Hmm.
kind of that's where they've been. But you have, like Zach Merritt, you said was back to his best, and Darcy Parish and Archie Roberts go with him. Elijah Sardis, who's been in the reserves for a bit, but has been a highly touted prospect. He comes in and gets 29 touches. I think Langford and Ridley do play really well. Then you have a guy like Xavier Dersma come in, who's been in there for a few years, and obviously as a Port fan, he's one that we loved when he was here. Some injuries and whatnot, and then just getting kind of frozen out of the mix. Took him to requesting a trade to Essendon, and he has what I think his champion data rating was his personal best. So whatever stock you put into champion data, I still did measure him as having his best game of his career based on champion data rankings. So you have just those guys go with the merits and whatnot, and they just keep. They have like 100 more disposals in the game or something like that. It was just insane.
Hmm.
Like they take a ton of marks and they just control the ball, use it really well, and just make Melbourne just not have the opportunity to win the game because they didn't have the ball, and they just were classy with the ball and rode that momentum to a very very comfortable win.
Yeah. So, and it's great. It's great for the Essendon players. Like again, now will we see? Is this a the question was this Melbourne taking Essendon lightly? Was this Essendon playing to what they could potentially be? There's several questions that we come out, and we're not going to know until the next couple of rounds because
Mm,
it could be just a temporary brain fade by Melbourne, and then Melbourne goes back. Coach King throws a few things in the locker room, gets these guys to pull their heads in, and they maybe play better next week, and we see it's a blip, or we see Essendon show that maybe they finally the message is clicked with what they want to do and they're going to be one of those pesky sides that they may not win a ton of games but they're going to push teams instead of just rolling over like so it's going to be fascinating
hmm.
to watch how this result affects the rest of the competition because we don't know now like I said is Essendon is was this a blip or is this a key to the way both of these clubs are going to go the rest of the season. We'll have to find out and see. Let's move to Norwood Oval, to the game that I think going into this round, this was the one that was talked about the most that was not at the Adelaide Oval, because Sydney, Gold Coast, two top six sides facing off, not at the Adelaide Oval. And as a Swans fan who's watched this Swans team, who has seen the transformation into a forward handball team, a forward attacking handball team, this game scared me because the Norwood Oval is skinny. So I thought all it's going to do is bring the Gold Coast defenders closer into the center of the midfield, and it was going to make for ball movement to be incredibly difficult. And boy, was I wrong. And I'm glad I was wrong, because Sydney somehow, even in this skinny ground, found a way to get their forward handball, and they get a 32-point win, 100 to 68. And I'm going to ask the neutral, and I'm going to ask you as the neutral in this, was this Sydney's dominance, or was this Gold Coast still being a younger side that still got a lot of young talent that kind of got exposed by some more experience and a very good, talented Sydney Swan side?
Yeah, possibly a bit of column A, bit of column B, I guess. It's I think it was Sydney just they had a down year last year and under the first year under Cox, and I think there was a little bit of this year they've started with an intent to kind of show that we are playing for this coach, and there is the talent that's there, and you've got guys that are fit, like Heaney's coming to the year in red hot form, and you're not even last year I think the loss of Goulden for a while like really kind of like, but this year it's like you'd love to have him, but like they've coping absolutely fine. You're getting Justin McInerney doing some great things, and
Hmm.
they're just the different pieces they've got are just clicking, and they're not even they're allowing Charlie Curnow to be, I'm doing air quotes for those listening, underwhelming, because he's just settling into the side. They're not even really too worried about that at the moment, because everything else is working well. They know that the Charlie Curnow, once he's settled, it'll be fine. And this one was just a great pressure. I mean, I just was looking at the tackles. I watched a bit of it and was like, geez, the pressure's good, and their tackle numbers, like 97 to 52 tackles, was just like Sydney just kind of just took the game to the Gold Coast, and Gold Coast just didn't really have a response to that kind of intense pressure throughout the game, the tackling, and just the fact that Gold Coast couldn't get into their work and into their flow because they were just, the pressure was too good, and then Sydney just franked that with their ball movement, and were able to cruise on. Gold Coast had a couple of incisions in the game where they get a couple of goals in a row
Hmm.
and try to make a push, but you ultimately could just tell that Sydney could click through the gears pretty comfortably on the day, which I'm sure pleased you waking up at 1 a.m. to watch it.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those. This performance reminded me a lot of 2024, where it seemed like Sydney was just so good, because once they got it into the inside, once they got it into their forward 50, teams could not get it out, because you just could not get through their tackle pressure, because it was almost like wave after wave of tackle pressure. This reminded me a lot of
Mm,
that season. I will do this though. I will give my flowers. Hey, Coach Hardwick, get Mac Andrew into the fucking ruck. Oh my God.
yeah.
I have never seen Brody Grundy absolutely have so many issues with an opposing ruck as he did with Mac. And like, Mac Andrew just kept finding levels to go up to tap the ball. But what I found fascinating was he was winning all these taps, but Sydney was winning the clearance. It was like
Hmm.
Gold Coast was not ready for what Mac was doing. So it almost kind of exacerbated the problem, because Sydney figured him out faster than Gold Coast did. So I will say this: I know Jared Witz is a great soldier, for the club, and has done so well. But Jared Witz, unfortunately, like a few rucks, I think are going to be phased out because of the new jumping ruck rule. That I think
Hmm.
guys like Jared Witz, guys like Riley O'Brien, Darcy Cameron, even a little bit is showing signs of this a little bit too. Is that the new ruck rule is advantage athletic movement rucks that can get around the ground, rucks that are athletic as hell. And I think Mac Andrew could be that, because he was incredible in
Hmm.
this game. Again, Brody Grundy still kind of toweled him up around the ground, but through that center bounce, the center ball up ones, Mac was having a field day. It was. it was crazy how easily Mac was winning those taps. But so I wanted that my plot is to the Gold Coast Suns. I agree with you. I still say that there's still some growing pains with this because there are still a lot of young players on this side. They're not as veteran as you would think because of all of these really good academy guys that are kind of growing into it. With Sydney, I agree. Like I think last year you had the kick mark, the pinpoint kicking mark game. The handball game has really kind of taken all that pressure away from we need Errol Goulden because we need how good he kicks. You don't need it as much now because with the handball game, you need the run, which, as you said, Justin McInerney has been kind of the revelation of the group because he's always been a good running. He's got a great tank, really good kick on the run, and is another one that will get tackle pressure as well. Um, the scary part about this Sydney Swan side is I think Chad Warner still hasn't hit his best. He's had
Mhm.
brilliant moments, but he still hasn't been like like 2024 when him and Isaac Heaney, like you didn't know who to cover because whoever you did, the other one went bonkers. So it's scary to think Goulden's still to come back. Braden Campbell from their startings has had a shin injury. Whether he'll be back this year or not, we don't know. Again, does Chad become the Chad? Is so as a Swans fan, I'm absolutely elated for this win. I know, again, long season, so I'm still not sitting here puffing my chest as a Swans supporter because I know that there's still teams that we need to play that are not going to be easy. But it was fun to see a game that terrified me have a little bit of an easier time with it. So that was fun. Again, wish this was at the Adelaide Oval. I think it would have been even more fun at the Adelaide Oval, but being at Norwood, I thought that it was absolutely chockers. Um, and then real quick, when you saw it, was there a jersey clash? Because I didn't see the jersey clash that everybody was complaining about.
Not as much as I thought it would be, because obviously it came up like before the game was even played. They're just kind of people making a point of it. But when I was watching I watched part of it, parts of the full replay, and then watched a mini just to get a bit of an idea of it as well. And I didn't phase me as much while I was watching it. I love those Suns unis, by the way.
I
That's a
agree.
really good thing they've
Agree.
done to finally get some identity into their club and their culture. Because I think they've talked about how their run of the pink stuff last year, just the pink stuff alone last year, well outsold everything they sold Guernsey wise the year before they
Hmm.
brought the pink in.
Yep.
So they've done something that's become cultural. I saw a lot of pink Gold Coast scarves and jerseys around across the weekend. So yeah, I love those. And yeah, yeah, didn't the matchup didn't bother me as much as I was watching live. It didn't. I could understand maybe from afar and maybe a few things, but unless the players are coming out and saying they're struggling with it, which I think happened a few weeks ago with another, there was a Brisbane wearing their Fitzroy Guernseys down in Melbourne were playing someone, and they said that there was a bit of a struggle on the field. But if the players are fine with it, then that's the
Yeah.
main thing. That's the only time I'm ever going to actually get too worried about it. Like I'll ever complain as a fan, but honestly, as long as the players out there aren't actually having an issue, then that's
Yeah.
the main thing. To be honest,
Yeah, I mean, it will never be as bad as the one Anzac game where both Essendon and Collingwood were black based.
yeah,
I remember watching that
yeah,
game. I had trouble sometimes knowing who was on what team.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, some of them,
that's a
some
Jersey clash.
egregious ones.
This
Yeah,
this one was not as big a deal as people were making it off to be. It was very easy to tell which one was Gold Coast and which one was Sydney.
particularly
So,
because the Sydney Guernseys had a real white back for this one, didn't they? And
yep,
then like looking at them from afar, from like the backs of the Guernseys, was like it was clear as day for me. So yeah,
yep,
no
yep.
problem with it at all.
Yep, no, 100%. So we'll move back to the Adelaide Oval to the one that this was the talk of everyone. It was Hawthorn, Western Bulldogs, towards the top of the table clash, both top four sides, both playing great. But unfortunately, the injuries of the Western Bulldogs came back to bite them and bite them hard as the Hawks get a 40-point win, 104 to 64. Timmy English is already down. Ed Richards comes in with an injury cloud, leaves with an injury. So
Mhm.
impressive for the Hawks, and the Hawks don't walk away unscathed either as Mario Cho goes down with a hamstring injury. So this is one of those Hawks get a win, great for it, but neither team walks out of this without a little bit of damage to them.
Yeah, yeah. Hawthorn certainly leave it with a lot of vibes and probably lot of energy about where they're going, because if they can come into the Western Bulldogs the first couple of weeks of the season, and look, there's some poor finishing possibly didn't assist them too well in this one, but Hawthorn still just the way they're moving, and the growth in guys like Nick Watson and Jack Ginnivan in particular, who have been maybe TikTok pests, so to speak, for opposition fans over the last couple of years. You're now seeing, similar to I was giving plaudits to Josh Rochelle earlier, guys that are exuberant and do add a lot of positive energy to the AFL, I think,
Mhm.
are now franking that with maturity and growth in their game. And you hear a lot of people talk about Ginnivan and just say that he's a he was probably best on field and in this one. And they say that for everything that he seems like a bit of a larrikin and not caring too much for sometimes it show like the way he carries on. You'd think if you were looking from the outside, you're like, oh, he's a bit of a doesn't really take it too seriously. But they say he's got a really really good smart footy mind and loves his footy and loves the analytical side of the game and really understands it. So you're starting to see him frank that raw talent with a maturity and growth that's setting him up as as a guy that was traded from Collingwood to there. And so there was some wondering about how that was going to go. Now he's locked in as one of their top players and is genuinely and amongst a group of very good players as well.
Mhm.
And Nick Watson's coming along kind of in that same vein as two guys that are no longer just goal kickers and pests on the field. They're actually going to be genuine stars in that side. And when you kind of add that in with all the other stars they've got around them, it's pretty scary where Hawthorn could possibly go this year,
Yep.
as long as they can stay fit.
Yep. No, 100% on and 100% with you on that. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes again with the Western Bulldogs. Like, is Ed Richards' injury an adaptation or a connection with his previous injury that he came into with it? Like, I don't know. The doggies, I'm a little bit scared because they're starting to break down this early in the season, and we're starting to get to the
Hmm.
meat of their fixture. So could we see a team that was so good so early fade a little bit through the center part of, and then be in strife a little bit as we get towards the later on in the season? Hawthorne was incredible again. Like, I didn't think Jack Ginnivan could actually start becoming likable, but he's starting to become likable with his game. He's starting to be like, again, I think so many people for his Collingwood days, and again, maybe it's a little bit of the Collingwood part that everybody just detested him. Like he became a guy who was very easy to boo. He was very easy to just absolutely detest. And he's become
Hmm.
likable since he's come over to Hawthorne because it's less of the pissant attitude. It's less of the rat bag, and he's kind of
Hmm.
becoming this smart footy player that has done. He's kind of subverted himself to be the best at what Hawthorne needs. I mean, Nick
Hmm.
Watson, I think, will always be. He's a lot like Tommy Papley. He gets under your skin because he's so good and he knows it, and he just does it. And like you hate him because he's on the other team, but you love him when he's on your side. Like I said, Tommy Papley is the same thing for me as a Swans fan. I absolutely adore the guy, but I know if he plays for another team because of some of the antics that he does, the almost over celebrating, can get on people's nerves. So I 100% get it. So Nick Watson again, I see Tommy Papley exact same thing, can go through the midfield, be that little electric spark when you need it. So and then the ever wonder that is Jack Gunston is playing incredible. Mitch Lewis. I mean, when Cal Shadir is sitting on the sidelines because he can't get in, the Mabior Troll
Yeah.
injury will probably see Kalsha come in, which is such a great story. And Kalsha will come in and do what he needs to do. But now, yeah,
Hmm.
This Hawthorne side, if they stay healthy, can be scary good. It's going to be fun to
Well,
watch this Hawthorne side.
I mean, you look at how they. I mean, obviously, Team English being out gave them a massive advantage in ruck, which they absolutely utilised to devastating effect with 64-17 hitouts. But the stoppage differential of 34-16 was just in pretty really really promising to do that to it. Even though obviously Dogs are dealing with a couple of injuries, but to still do that to a side that's got guys like Bont and stuff running around. Um, to really have that dominance at stoppage, the Dogs did get some wins at centre clearance, but to absolutely just beat them senseless at the stoppage, which is such a key part of winning a football game and controlling field position. Yeah, no, that's just incredible stuff from Hawthorn. They're scary. Porter got to play them this week, and Donny, I'm a touch scared because that's not going to go well.
You never, it's unfortunately, we'll discuss Port a little bit here, just the tiniest bit, because unfortunately the result this weekend probably doesn't add to any more of the lack of worry for that on that. So I want to roll the next two together because really they
Mhm.
both have the same thing. Good team, not so good team. As Geelong
Yeah.
win at Norwood Oval over West Coast Eagles 122-76, and then as a hold my beer carbon copy at the Barossa Valley, GWS beats Richmond 131-75. So both these games were relatively similar. It was kind of creepy to watch both of them back to back because they really were the same thing. Geelong, GWS, really good, really solid, really good football teams. Both, I think, can make finals this year. Richmond, West
Mhm.
Coast, not so much. Sparks of showing how good they are. Again, I think West Coast is a little bit. West Coast, they have Harley Reid, they have Will Dersma, the Cooper Duff Tyler. I think Tytler, not Tyler, Tytler. Um, there's a few more green shoots, I think, in the West Coast camp a little bit on this.
Mhm.
Richmond, they're absolutely missing Toby Nankervis through the center. When you have to bring in a former basketballer to play ruck, and again, he didn't do a bad job, but they are hurting without Nank, like really, really
Mhm.
hurting, and it's exposing the lack of talent around Hopper and Taranto through the center. They don't have a lot of established things there, so it's really, really hurting them. So like I said, I really don't want to spend too much time on both of these games because again, Geelong is Geelong. They're going to do what they're going to do. GWS have shown flashes of what they can be. Um, Great seeing Toby Bedford and Brett Daniels back. Scary to think this Giants side is still getting healthier. Um,
Mhm.
Still no Sam Taylor, which I think hurts them in some of these matchups where you have that big forward. It didn't hurt them in this one because they didn't really have that one. I know Lafau went for 4 goals in this game. He was really the most dangerous thing on Richmond's side when they could go forward. But again, GWS, Geelong, they did what they needed to do. They beat two teams that, we'll be honest, will probably be in the bottom four at the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. You had the workhorses for both teams go to work. You've got like the likes of Finn Callahan and Clayton Oliver and Lockie Ash, Lockie Whitfield, and then obviously Toby Greenley. If you've got those five are all at the top of the disposals charts before you get down to and the usual suspects for Richmond who are popping up and working as hard as they can in Jacob Hopper and Tim Taranto. But to your point, they just don't have the guys around them supporting them. Like you've got orange tsunami, so to speak, of the guys right from back to front, and Whitfield, Nash, Callahan, Oliver through to Toby Green up high half forward. When all those guys are clicking, and yeah, to your point, they get guys back and they're getting fit again, hopefully, and that's been the big drop on GWS the last couple of years is when they get a few injuries, it drops off for them a bit. But and then
Mhm.
you had the same thing in Geelong. Bailey Smith, Max Holmes, Tom Atkins, and Tanner Bruin all have 28 or more. So Tanner Bruin come back for them. Has there's a kind of extra spark, and he's finding form. And yeah, just the workhorses go to work and beat teams they should beat by comfortable margins. If not, they're not 100-point wins, but you just go out there and get the work done, win by 50 points on odd grounds as well, like Barossa and Norwood are two very untraditional grounds. Norwood with its shape, the Barossa grounds obviously have got a lot more of a traditional um, modern shape to it, being that it's purpose built, but it's still got the conditional things that are different. When you play at a ground that doesn't have stands around it like your usual ones, it still makes things move differently. So they would have just been like, yeah, if we can go to work, get a comfortable win, that's a win for us. The guys get their touches, we move on.
Yep, 100% on that. We'll go to the curtain closer, and unfortunately, our beloved Dave is probably not looking forward to talking about this one as the St. Kilda Saints go into the Adelaide Oval and get a win by 14, 81-76. Sir, tell me about this because I kept an eye on this one. I was half asleep during this one because it started at 4:15 in the morning for me, so I was kind of half
Mhm.
watching it. So walk me through this because I mean, I know Portis, they've had some struggles. I mean, no Connor Rosie, I think has affected this team a little bit again. I think Butters has been I think Butters has been
Yeah.
Butters, so that doesn't surprise me. Jason Horn Francis with another decent game, but I mean, what's missing?
It's real just kind of depth of supreme talent around those guys. We're obviously dealing with injuries again. Rosie being the big one, and then Horn Francis has been working back from an off-season injury. He obviously finished the season on the sidelines last year. Had a screw put in his foot after he broke his foot against West Coast last year. He still kicked, I think, 2 goals after he broke his foot, and they figured it out after the game. But he's kind of been working back into somewhat had a preseason happen during the season. He's finding some of his best touch again. Our midfield mix is just, unfortunately, we're just not finding the right mix. And I think this one, we were 27 points down before we'd even touched the scoreboard ourselves. So, and then the halftime score was 27 points still. And then we made our runs in the game, but we started poorly. Although we had our time in forward half number and a few things stats wise was okay in the first quarter, but we just, when the run went against us, we just weren't able to defend. St Kilda just being a bit more classy with the ball in moments. Naz, some great disposal from him. Maybe some questionable umpiring calls in the game, which obviously has reared its ugly head afterwards as well. But you can't blame. Like ultimately, we got smashed. I think halfway through the second quarter, we might have been 15-5 in clearance. We just getting smashed in contested ball, smashed in clearance. Our mix wasn't right in midfield. We tried to have Jace Burgoyne run with Naz early at the centre bounce, but Jace Burgoyne just hasn't done much centre bounce work. So I don't know if I don't really think he touched the ball much himself. So if you're having a negating role on a guy like Naz, who ended up having a good game anyway, if you're not really doing the job on him and you're not getting much of the ball yourself, it's really not doing. You're just removing a talented player from what he can usually do. And then Willem Drew was in the middle, and he wasn't getting enough hand on the ball. So like we kind of tried to negate a player, and we just couldn't get our hands on it anyway. And so we just got smashed in clearance, and we improved some of those numbers as the game went on, and tried to get back into the game and brought it back to 9 points. But ultimately, a poor start and just getting the mix wrong a little bit at the start. You know, trying to tag a player, and when you try to tag a player and it just doesn't work at all, then that really sets you up poorly at the start of a game because you've basically lost a quarter of a game with a game plan that's not working, and they were able to take advantage and build a lead that they ultimately were able to defend throughout the game.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, I won't make you go through any more of that pain. We will move on. So that is all 9 games of Gather Round again. And thank you, South Australia. Again, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful hosts. Absolutely fantastic. Let's go to it, sir. We'll get to the burning questions. And as somebody that attended several games, including your own, for you, sir, what was the biggest story coming out of Gather Round?
There's a few. Obviously, I mean the big story that's going to be like football related is the Zach Butters umpiring tribunal hearing that we're going to have tomorrow here in Australia. So that's the big footy story. The other one that's and you know any questions you have on that, feel free to ask. But the other one that I think that's come out of it is what's the future of Gather Round. The future is that it's going to happen, and it likely is going to be South Australia because I think South Australia is rewarded the concept with proper 100% investment and just diving into it with full like hearted enthusiasm. But it's the nature because our Peter Malinauskas wants a 4 to 5 year deal at least because he wants the commitment from the AFL so that he can commit because he's like I have more ideas, but asking the South Australian taxpayers to put that investment into something that we only have for 1 or 2 years, and and the AFL is
Yep,
going to keep
yep.
teasing us with taking it. So he wants a 4 or 5 year deal. So it's been the story the whole weekend. There's photos with Andrew Dillon and Peter Malinauskas at events, and they're
Mhm.
talking and they're getting interviewed, and people go, "So where are you at?" And they kind of both just wryly smile and go, "We're talking," but you can tell
Yeah.
there's still. Um,
They're
so
holding they're
we've come
both
out of
holding their
gathering.
cards very close to their chests.
Yeah, yeah. So that's probably the big story there. And then obviously, like I said, I think the other one, beyond the success of it, obviously all those things we kind of touched on at the start. I think the two stories are what the future of Gather Round is beyond it, obviously being successful, and then the Zach Butters, the umpiring. The he said out of that has
Mhm.
obviously dominated the news cycles over here. I've been watching the Monday night shows before I got on the podcast with you, and a lot of the topics on 360 and on the couch and all those shows were dominated by that story.
Oh, thanks for the preview. I get to watch those a little bit later. So I haven't. It's the one fun time about doing this because it's early morning for me on Monday morning, and I will
Mhm.
as I work my at the start of my workday, I will turn those on to kind of catch up what's on the tea leaves. I did see something last night on a post about the whole Butters thing. I'm not going to really address it right now because it's something a little bit out of my per se right now. For me, I would say, and I'm going to stay strictly on field. For me, it's how does Essendon and Melbourne go from now? That's
Mhm.
my biggest question because again, this was the result nobody saw. Nobody saw this one coming that Essendon would get the win and Melbourne would lose, and that Essendon would win it in the fashion that they did. How do they respond? How does Stephen King get Melbourne going again? Or does this take the proverbial balloon completely out of the D's and we see the D's kind of flop the rest of the year? And then with Essendon, do we see this effort and this energy and this attack of the football and an attack of the game? Does it persist? Or was this we caught Melbourne for the perfect storm? They weren't ready for us. They maybe took us lightly and we caught them off guard, but everybody else is not going to have that happen. How's that going to go? And then for me is what's the Western Bulldogs? Do we see a tailspin because of the injuries, because of everything that's happening? Do we see the tailspin? So for me, I'm primarily trying to keep it on field, but I'm 100% with you. The big stories are going to be what's Gather Round's future, which is actually my next question, which is kind of perfect because another
Mhm.
magnificent gather round. Again, so many events, everything that I hear, again, so many of my South Australian friends, including yourself, have said, Donnie, you got to get over here for gather round. This thing is just too darn
Yeah.
good to miss. And it is one of those things that I would love to go to. It's just financially not right now. But
Mhm.
no, I
I get it.
100% agree with you. Footy everywhere, footy being the town. 100%. It is definitely one of those things that I'd love to do. Take off your South Australian hat for just a second. I know that's not easy because of the diehard South Australian that you are. Should
Mhm.
Gather Round stay in Adelaide from now on? Or do you see a time when maybe it does travel? Because I know the idea thrown out there is when Tasmania comes in, having it go to Tassie. But I agree with one of the arguments with it is Hobart and Launceston are not that close.
Mhm. I've looked at it. I've tried to do the objective thing over the last couple of years because I do try to think about these things and do the devil's advocate argument. And
Hmm.
just Adelaide and the way Adelaide is set up, it's the city of Adelaide itself being a planned city, as opposed to the other cities that kind of, as they developed, grew out from an area. Adelaide's just a very easy city to get around. Obviously, Adelaide Oval right there in the middle, and then it's just a very easy city to get around. And all the locations that are being discussed for future gather rounds, obviously the Barossa, currently Mount Barker previously, the suburban grounds, like, I get from my place here in the Barossa Valley to the centre of Adelaide in good traffic, sometimes in 50 minutes. Like it's so quick
Hmm.
to surprisingly to get from these different areas. Obviously, traffic and other things related can make some issues there. But yeah, like the Tasmania one, I mean, I can't even, if their team might come in without a stadium. So then that's going to delay when they could have, I don't think they'd have a gather round until they have their stadium up and running and the precinct ready to go.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, Western Australia, I just don't know if it's feasible because of the travel from even here, let alone the eastern. Western Australia is really, really
Yep.
far away from all of us. So it's the central location for it here. Obviously, South Australia just being a real footy nuffy state, we do
Yep.
support it when we have jumped in headfirst into supporting the concept and making it what it is. Because I think people forget where it started was like, is this going to work? And just the investment South Australia put into it
Hmm.
has just gone has made it. And I think the problem would be if you move it, there'd be immediate and a line that Jamie says in our podcast a lot is comparison can be the thief of joy, and you'd have that start immediately if Sydney got one for a year. They'd just be like, oh, this isn't working as well because Sydney's the way Sydney's laid out, and it's obviously not a footy heartland. As much as Sydney has invested in the game greatly, and the teams over there are good, doing good things, it's it's
Hmm.
still just not doesn't have the wealth, the undergrowth of support. So if the concept happened that maybe South Australia gets it 3 out of 4 years and then they just move it around every fourth year or something like that, like an Olympic year, so to speak, I don't know,
Hmm.
like something like that would work. But I think South Australia is is the state that kind of just went, this is something that we can do and make it work. And I just think
Mhm.
at any changes to that would be to the detriment of what we've done, and possibly hurt the product that it's become. And I think footy fans by and large aren't clamoring for it to move. So if you just talk to the punters on the street, they're like, no, this is great, this works. Like, we don't need to change. It seems like all those ideas come from the heads above that are like wanting their slice of the pie, which is not what these things should be about. It should be
Mhm.
about support. This is something to celebrate footy and support footy. We've done it perfectly well. It would be, again, I'm not against other states getting a go, but I think we have to be very, very careful because it works very, very well. You don't want to hurt the product, and the ultimate communal aspect of it by trying to make money off of it and move it around to places that it just isn't going to work the way it does here.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I'm gonna go full neutral here because again, I'm live thousands of kilometers away. So this is my opinion on it, and because I will
Mm,
I will openly raise my hand. When they first came up with the gather round idea, I thought Sydney was actually a really good idea because you have NG Stadium, you have you have the SCG, you have
hmm
Blacktown. So you have some really good ovals that are used in the AFLW. So there's plenty of things. But I agree with you that the once Adelaide kind of grabbed it, you could tell Milanowskis went, we are going to make this so good, it's almost impossible for anybody to move it out. And I think
hmm
he's accomplished that. And I agree that I think this should be a permanent thing. Like, I agree with you. Everything that I hear from people is that because Adelaide's central location, Western Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tassie eventually, it is a great meeting place. It's not too
hmm
big to where everything gets swallowed up. Adelaide is just small enough that it does kind of make it very homey, very country footy-esque, like a footy carnival. So I am a huge proponent if Malinowskis and the AFL can figure this out of making it a making it a permanent contract. I think you could do once every 4 years, do a Tassie or do a New South Wales. I just I agree with you. I worry that what it's going to do is it's going to taint it because it's not going to be the same as what
hmm
South Australia has kind of made it. They have made it a premier event. They have set up there are no other states in Australia that are going to have the Barossa Valley and Adelaide Oval in
Yeah.
less than an hour and a half drive. So, I mean, I just don't see how you can compete with that because so many of the media have just absolutely want to be involved in the games up in the Barossa because then they can go to the wineries because of the world-class wineries that are there. So, I am 100%.
The
Go ahead.
Yeah. And to your point, that the accoutrements, sorry to interject, like I wanted to make a point because I went to obviously I went to the Barossa game on Saturday, and I actually came back to Tanunda, which is only 10 minutes from where I'm living. And they closed off in Tanunda, for those unaware, is like kind of the central town of the Barossa Valley as far as the tourist, like coffee shops and a
Mhm.
lot of winery cellar doors there, and they're kind of the center of the Barossa in a way. And they closed off the street from 3:30 through 9:30. Basically, the entire street of Tanunda closed off for a street party, and it was packed. Like food trucks, obviously the pubs, a lot of wineries set up little stalls. So I'm just grabbing, walking the streets of Tanunda, grabbing a glass of wine. They had big screens set up for the footy that was being played. So, people are running around in their kits, enjoying some great food, some great wine, some great beers. Justin Westhoff, who's a
Mhm.
Barossa boy, has got a brewery in the Barossa with a schoolmate of his, and they were set up there. So and their brewery's doing events. Charlie Dixon was there on Saturday as well. So you even had that footy, that local, a local hero of the Barossa who made it big in the AFL doing his thing, and it's just a great atmosphere, and yeah, getting to enjoy some of the best. The Bros is one of the premier wide regions in the world. Obviously, McLaren Vale is being talked about as a future site as well, which is a great area south of the city as well.
Mhm.
So, and like it's all within an hour, and alongside that, there's just great beaches, great food, great. If you just want to go for a drive, if you have a day off and you just want to go for a drive around the area, if you haven't been here before, you'll find yourself driving winding through the hills, through to the valleys, and you'll just be like, this place is beautiful. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep.
it's hard. It's just impossible to replicate what we have.
Yep. No. And that's why, like I said, I don't know if Andrew Dillon and Peter Malinowskis will be able to do a lifetime contract because I don't think the AFL is money savage enough, we'll say it that way, that they'll look. But I agree with you.
Mm,
I think if you're going to ask the South Australian taxpayers to foot the bill for this, you need to get at least a 5-year guarantee. And so I 100%
mm,
I understand both sides' arguments. I really do. But like I said, as a huge neutral that's watched this thing grow from the first year, and like I said, I openly will raise my hand. I thought Sydney would have been the best for the first year, but looking back on that decision, you have made the AFL made the best decision picking Adelaide.
yeah.
Like, let's just be honest.
I mean,
I will
speaking just one more thing on
100%.
that.
Yep, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Apparently, Sydney were basically almost guaranteed to be getting it when the concept came up. And I think it was grand final day in 2022 that Malinowskis was apparently just
Yeah, I
worked the
heard
room.
that.
Like, it was
Yep,
an article that came out in the weekend that basically Malinowskis worked the rooms and just worked all day talking to people, spruiking his idea for it. And the people that saw it said it was just one of the most incredible performances of passion and political intent
hmm
to to get something. And he basically, they say, he flipped the coin that day from it being likely going to be Sydney to it being no other choice in South Australia, based purely on his passion for it. And that passion is as obviously seeped out into the project that it's, or the concept that it's grown into. And it's just,
100%.
again, you can't replicate that, because I don't know if the New South Wales Premier had that same passion for it. So it
Yep,
has just
no,
become, it's been a perfect storm of the right Premier, the right time, and the concept just being embraced fully by enough
yep.
state.
Well, and I'll say this. I think opening round is because they wanted to do something in Sydney. And from what I'm hearing through tea leaves in the W space, it sounds like there will be a gather round potentially in the W. And it sounds like Sydney is the spot that they are most likely looking for the women's one. So I think
Yeah.
that might actually help keep the men's in Adelaide is if they do a gather round for the women and it's in Sydney because of the Sydney support has been so well up there that I'm thinking that
Hmm.
maybe that might be the twist that we get to maybe you have those two locations being this is the men's, this is the women's, here we go. So
Hmm.
I hope it's true because I think it'd be fun to see that again. You can't argue with what
I'd
South
love to go
Australia
to
did.
a W gather round. That would be
Oh yeah.
great. I'm
Well,
down.
and the good part is, like I said, you'd have the SCG, you'd have Blacktown, you'd have North Sydney Oval. There's plenty of really good ovals that the women could go to that are good enough venues.
Mm.
Like I said, I think it'd work. We'll have to see, do they pull the trigger? Again, AFL House is not exactly known for pulling the trigger for good things when it comes to the AFLW. Again, sorry, but
Hmm.
I will sink my boot into them a little bit on that. Again, because I think there's so much more that they could do for them. Again, I'll pull away from my rant on
Oh
the
no, what?
W. I'll save my
No,
rants
I
for the
like it.
W for the W episodes, but I will sink my boot into them a little bit on that because there's so many good things that they could do for the W that for some weird reason they just never pull the trigger for. So we'll get off
Yeah.
that. And I don't want to go to this because of the way the weekend went, but I will ask, as the power fan that you are, as the lovely visual that I have of your man cave there, that is absolutely epic. Is there any panic amongst the power fans with how the season has started?
No, but the panic was already there. I think where I think a lot of realistic Port fans know, even if David Koch won't say it himself, that we're in the rebuild at the moment. Like we're fully in a rebuild at the moment. We're probably on the slightly, like, maybe not quite bottoming out quite yet. With the
Hmm.
impending Zach Butters contract decision and what list management decisions come out of whatever happens there, some promising NGA products and father sons in the next couple of years, which will of course possibly be screwed over by, and I'll sink my boot in on AFL House. They're making rash decisions and changing such fundamental cores of list management on the run and not giving us a grandfather period of time to deal with that. So yeah, no, the season, I think we all hoped we'd start better. So there is a little bit of, I think it's not panic. It's like, oh no, this is going to be tough. Like this rebuild, we all knew it was going to be a rebuild, but we thought, oh, maybe we'll go 3-2 or 4-1 to start the season against some bad sides. But we've gone 2-3. some of these sides might be pretty good this year. North Melbourne, possibly aiming for a wildcard spot, so they may not be the team they've been for the previous years. And as we discussed, there's some green shoots there, and West Coast are at least plucky and competitive, if imperfect. So those results aside, yeah, I think it's more. I'm not panicking, but I think it's because I already was, and I've come to terms. I've gone through the 5 stages of grief of accepting that a rebuild is happening. So I'd already kind of done that at the start of the year, but we certainly hoped. We thought, oh, if injuries are good, if we have some good injury luck, people can hit the ground running in form, and maybe we can be the wild card side. But that was kind of maybe the ceiling for us this year, and I think now it's like, no, we're going to miss finals this year, and we might be missing finals for a couple of years here, and that's just the reality of it. So yeah, I guess I am. If you asked me if I was panicking 6 months ago, that's when I would say I'm panicking. I've accepted it a little bit. It's not that it's not that I'm happy with it. I still I won't go to the game last night, and I'm absolutely cheering for a win and getting incredibly frustrated by what I saw. But in the weekdays between games, I kind of sit there and go, yeah, no, I hope it's a fast rebuild, because you never want to be doing it for 6, 7 years or whatever. But yeah, I am kind of accepting that we're in a period of pain at the moment, which is just how professional sports are set up. You've got to go. Some teams are pretty good at rebuilding on the run, as Geelong have kind of topped up, and some teams do that quite well. We've tried. I think we tried that a little bit, and it just hasn't quite worked. And now we've got to kind of accept that there will be a little rebuild for hopefully only a short amount of time. But yeah, that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting that the Rosey injury doesn't help. It doesn't help at all because
Mm.
it just shows that the Butters talk, I think I don't want to say it's a distraction, but I think it's starting to become one. And then
Oh, it's so annoying. It's
this
just
whole
ever present.
and 80% of it is the Victorian media. I mean, pardon my French, it's the Victorian media absolutely patting themselves on the back that a Victorian kid is going to leave South Australia to
Yeah.
just to go back to Victoria. And it's a little annoying because it always starts far too freaking early for me. Like, I don't mind the Gettables podcast. Like, that's their job. But there
Hmm.
are times that they throw some stuff out there that just never materializes. And they spend months talking about it. I'm just like, I get it. You want the clicks, you want the listens, but there does become a point when it's like you are beating a dead horse for no reason other than just entertainment value. Like it brings no substance to the game. And they've been talking about Butters for a year and a half.
Hmm.
Like it's just it does my head in how much they talk about it. It's so again, I hope Butter stays. I unfortunately just the tea leaves don't sound good, especially if you are correct and we are going and Port is kind of looking at a rebuild again. I know it's burns the ears of some sports fans hearing the R word, but again, I don't know. The only person that knows what he wants to do is Zach Butters, and Zach is
Hmm.
not going to say anything. He's at least professional enough. He's not going to come out and say it. I mean, unfortunately, this isn't the NRL where somebody can sign a contract with a new team a year in advance. That's not going to
Hmm.
happen. I will openly say that I don't like it because for me, if I'm a teammate of his, it makes me question your passion for the club. It makes me question, are you going to do everything you can, or are you going to save some because you know you're leaving at the end of the year? So that's
Yeah.
why, like, some people are like, we need to be professional about this in sports. No, we don't. What other sport does that? There's no sport
Mm.
up. If they tried to do it up here in American sports, you would be kicked out of the town like that. Like, I am
Yeah.
not kidding you. You do not sign with another team a year in advance. I do not understand it. I do not trust it. I'm sorry, NRL fans. I know it's something you've done for a while. That's fine. You do you guys. You do you. But I'm sorry. If I have somebody on my team that I know is leaving in a year, they are furthest away from me when it comes to trusting them because I
Mm.
don't know if I can trust that you're going to give me everything, knowing you're not going to be in these same colors next year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I will say, and to give Butter some credit, I think, I mean, obviously he's leading the coaches association voting at the moment, so he's putting the effort in.
Yep.
I think he had a poor first half last week against Richmond, and he said Josh Carr gave him a G up, and he finished the game pretty well and was in one of the best players and in the votes. And last night, he obviously the umpiring situation aside, he had some moments. I think he kind of had a chat to I think Mitch Georgiades at one point when there was a little bit of skirmishing going on, so a little bit of leadership stuff there, and
Mhm.
a passionate celebration for his goal. His tackle of Naz over the boundary was a highlight moment. Played a lot,
Mhm.
and really, and he got into him. So his on-field attitude and the way he's playing his football at the moment is not of a player that's again. If I was to say, I will say my opinion at the moment. I think he already knows he's going. That's just my opinion, but I have no idea. That's
Mhm.
just maybe I'm just trying to prepare myself for it
Yep.
by accepting it already. But watching him play last night, I was like, at least even if he knows at the end of the year that his decision is I'm going to go to the Dogs or Geelong or whichever team's going to do the trade that Port want. Um, Watching him last night reassured me that he doesn't have the ability to kind of phone it in. Maybe he does, but last night he certainly didn't, and he played his heart out, and obviously he's got himself into a possible bit of trouble for it. Even though I'm not sure I believe a certain side of that story, but yeah,
Mhm.
that's a topic for another day. But yeah, he's playing some good football regardless, and I think that's clearly obvious by the fact he's leading a major award at the moment.
Yep, no, 100%. I'm everything that I've seen of Zach Butters. He is a leaves every single significant bit of energy that he has on the field. So I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. I don't if he knows or if he doesn't know, I really don't care. All I want to see is the effort the same, and it is. So for me,
Hmm.
I'm good. No matter what his decision is, I'm good. But
Yep.
it is frustrating how much the talk. Like again, it's a
It just
year and a
takes my
half.
enjoyment out of it. Like
It does
I
and
want to
it
enjoy
doesn't.
him.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
want
Well,
to
yeah.
just as a fan, like I want to enjoy, and like every time I'm watching him play, like last night, I'm just like enjoy. I cheer the goal, and I was like, his first goal, and then like I facetiously looked at my Jamie, my co-host, standing next to me, and went like,
Mhm.
that's an extra million on the deal, like just to like because it's just, it's just I'm a bit of a
Or at
cynical
least 200,
bastard when
at
it
least
comes to yeah,
250,000. Yeah.
yeah.
Nah,
So
completely,
yeah, but
completely get it. So no,
yeah.
he's again, Butters is an incredible talent. Again, whether he stays or goes, again, we'll find out at the end we'll find out at the end of the year what happens on that. Again, enjoy what is his talent because it is an incredible talent that he is. So
Mhm.
that is it for burning questions. As per usual, sir, we get to the part of the podcast I take over just the littlest bit. We'll do team of the week. And I love Dave is another one of those that pulls me up. So I'm fascinated on what he thinks on this. My defense core, I will openly admit, my defense core is probably not the best defensive group when it comes to it. So it's going to be fun. Here we go. So we'll start on the fullback line. He started there, so I'm going to give him a little bit of a leeway here. As Ollie Florent of the Carlton Blues pushed forward, kicked a goal in this game. On that, Luke Ryan was incredible for Fremantle, back in the back, and then Cal Wilkie. I'm going to give that man his flowers. I know last year he was one of the guys I thought should have had an All Australian jumper and did not get it. I was thoroughly teed off that he did not get it. I thought he really deserved it as well as he played. Go to the halfback line. Archie Roberts was incredible for the Essendon Bombers. Tom McCarthy of the West Coast Eagles and Lockie Whitfield of the GWS Giants round out the halfback line. Let's go to the wings. This is my favorite. I've had a few people compliment me that I actually put wingers on it. I pushed a little bit. I have Naz Wanganeen Millera as a wing on this one. I think he plays a little bit more wing
Mm.
style than he does through the center. In fact, I think it's probably a little bit where he excels more. Mark O'Connor is the other wing. I know he goes through the midfield, sometimes goes through the center, but a lot of his possessions were out on the wing. Through the center, we have LDU, Luke Davies Uniacke of North, Isaac Keeney of the Sydney Swans, and Jason Horn Francis of Port Adelaide. I know he pushes forward a little bit more, so that's probably why he gets his couple of goals, but I'll chuck him into the guts because he did several. I mean, the Rock, Max gone. I mean, how can you not? Max is Max. He always does what he needs to do. half forward line, Josh Rochelle of the Adelaide Crows, McKelty Lafau of the Richmond Tigers, and also from Adelaide, Ben Keys round out the half forward line. The full forward line, we have Tommy Papley, Mr. Energy himself, Aaron Cadman of the GWS Giants, and Job Shannon of the West Coast Eagles round out the full forward line. This year, with the 23-man roster, no sub, I do five on the bench, so I have a utility this year. So my defender is John Noble of the Gold Coast Suns. My ruck is Sam Draper of the Brisbane Lions. I know for some people that pay attention, coach, in your metric, Sam Draper kicked two. Max Gunn only kicked one. I know that, but Sam Draper had only 14 disposals. So that's why he's on the bench. He still gets his plaudits, but didn't have as much an impact as Max Gawn did. Through the center, we
Mm-hmm.
have Kazi Pickett of the Melbourne Demons playing a lot more midfield, so I'm going to put him through the center. Ben Long of the Gold Coast Suns is my forward, and my utility is Ryan Angwin of the GWS Giants. So I know it's a lot of names really quickly, Dave. Pull me up. Where do you think I went wrong? Team of the week.
Well, wait, I didn't hear Zach Butters pop up there. Did I just be a homer for the first one?
No. Nope. Unfortunately,
Yeah, no,
one the several that are above him kicked multiple. Where Butters kicked
yeah,
two. He was right there. It was the fact Kazi kicked two is the thing that
yeah.
really helped him out. So
Look, I
yeah.
love Cozzy Pickett as well. Wish he was in port jumper. I actually didn't. I loved it. Like Cal Wilkie, similar to the Luke Parker line I mentioned earlier for North Melbourne. I think Jamie and I on the hill this week where when Cal Wilkie took another mark, it was just like, "Ah, fuck him again. Like so, like that's a reverse compliment from an
Mhm.
opposition fan when you're saying that on the hill.
Alira
So
Lear has had a
yeah,
couple of games this year where he's done the same thing that Cal Wilkie. You'd think
oh
there's no way that it's going to be a mark for the forwards, and he just materializes there. So that's
yeah,
Cal
yeah.
Wilkie
Probably
does
missed it
that.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, Aaliyah was a bit off that form last night, but he's had some games this year that are
Yep.
right back to kind
Yep.
of all Australian Aaliyah. Probably the other one I would have loved to see Alex Pearce in there, but obviously he's not pushing forward and getting goals in the not in this game in the Donny metric. But I thought Alex Pearce was just in person and watching his. I mean, he took like
Yep.
5 intercept marks, I think, or something like that, and
Mhm.
just his leadership and how he battled in that game and took a big mark late. That would probably be the other one. I think
Yeah,
oh, actually, yeah,
it's
really
Luke Ryan's
Alex
disposal
Pearce.
was the
Alex
main
Pierce,
reason
March.
there. Yep.
Yeah,
No,
and Melbourne
I
Pierce
love
got a
Piercy.
badge
Love
on me right
Piercy.
now. So
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
think three of the best fullbacks in the competition right now: Cal Wilkie, Sam Taylor, and Alex Pierce. In my personal
yeah.
opinion, it is hard. And Wiedering is right there. It's those guys that
Yeah,
they're
geez.
gonna be good every time they step on the
Felt
every
miss
time they
Wiedering the
step.
other night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah. 100%. Like that really hurt them in a game that they really needed it with the bigs that Adelaide has when it comes to their forward line. So no,
mm,
I love a good fullback. I love a good guy. Can go one on one, can get an intercept mark, can body up. Tommy McCartan I think has stepped up and done really well as a fullback himself. Um, Harris Andrews coming back for Brisbane, I think really helped them. I know Connor Trimbath had that incredible mark, but again, Harris Andrews, he's whenever he's playing for Brisbane, he makes an impact on Brisbane's defense. So there are some
mm,
really good ones. I think Ruben Jimby is starting to become that. He's been able to match up with some big forwards and have not bad days. He doesn't get beat very often, but when he does get beat, he tends to get beat in situations that are less dangerous. So I got to give
mm,
that to the young fullback because I think he's slowly becoming that Sam Taylor, the Wiederings, the Cal Wilkies, where you're going to know his name just because he's that good when you need him to be. So
mm,
excuse me. So, and then because we are 5 games in, ladies and gentlemen, we've gotten to that point of the year the power rankings are back. So I always love this because you have to get 5 games in because I hate when people do a power ranking after 2 games. I'm like, what do you know about these teams? You really don't because it all depends
mm,
on who they've played, how they've played, yada, yada. So with 5 games, we've got a decent amount of form to be able to look at. So here we go. Here's my power rankings. And for some people, there's going to be a surprise. So we'll start off at 5, the Western Bulldogs. They are 3-2. They have lost, but I will say this, when they're healthy, they're scary. So I'm going to keep them
mm.
there. I think they fall out because the English injury, I think, is really hurting them. At 4, the defending premiers, the two-time defending premiers, the Brisbane Lions. They're starting to find form. Kitty Coleman is back healthy. The Dane Zorko injury. Thankfully, Kitty's there, so I don't know if that's going to be as big a loss for Brisbane. But once they get fully healthy again, another team I think is definitely a flag contender. At three, the Sydney Swans playing really well. That one loss to Hawthorn has really kind of hurt them. They've played really good football, see themselves at the top of the ladder. But again, there's still some tough competition and a huge Sydney Derby coming up this round. At two, the Hawthorn Hawks. You take down the Western Bulldogs, the team, one of the hottest teams in the competition going into that game. Have to put them there. And the only team that's 4-0 in the last four games, Fremantle, is at one. So I know a little bit weird. Coach, they barely get a win over. Again, they get the win. They've won four consecutive games. That's the longest win streak currently right now in the AFL. So they're going to be at the top of the ladder. So power rankings 1 through 5 again: Western Bulldogs, Brisbane Lions, Sydney Swans, Hawthorn Hawks, and at one, the Fremantle Dockers. So that is power rankings. We'll go to it, sir. I know we're still early in the week. Some injury reports. Again, we'll have to see how the whole Butters things goes. And I know that's something you're going to be very in tune for. But let's do some tipping. This is an interesting slate right here for round six. The old rivals, MCG, Carlton, Collingwood. Your tip.
It's an interesting one. I'm tipping Collingwood, but I actually like Carlton showing patches that they can like score, and but I think Collingwood will want to bounce back from a disappointing night. And I mean, it depends on a few of those injuries that they've got as well. And you know, the Dacos came back and played pretty well the other night. So,
Mhm.
but Jordan Dugowie looks like he's going to be out, so that's a loss. But I'm still picking Collingwood, but I did think about it a bit more than I thought I was going to.
I am. We're kind of on the same wavelength. I tipped Collingwood because the form. But
Hmm.
this is a scary danger game with some of the injury issues that Collingwood is facing. They're a little banged up. Carlton, you should get Wiedering back for this game, which solidifies their forward, but not like Collingwood really has a huge full forward that's very dangerous. Dan McStay's good, but I think he's more serviceable. I think they're really missing Brody Myacek. I think they're really regretting that decision, letting him go. Buller is good, but Buller is not that presence when it comes to full forward. Tipping Collingwood, but this one, if I'm a Collingwood fan, this one scares me because you know Carlton's going to get up for the old rival. You know they are. This could be the time when Carlton finally it clicks against the right squad. So it'll be fascinating on this one because Pitnet is playing really good at ruck and Darcy Cameron is still not figured out these new ruck rules. Could Pitnet give this midfield a lot of first use, which I think will then put a lot of pressure on a still injury riddled, still kind of not fully functional defense for the Collingwood Magpies. So tipping pies, but I think Carlton's up and about in this one. I think this one's a little bit, I think this one could come down to late in the fourth quarter for sure. Fun one down at GMHBA Stadium, which quick gripe here. Two Friday night fucking games, and both of them are really good. What the fuck, AFL? Come on, what the fuck? Seriously, I let me. Sorry, I didn't mean to. But Geelong Western Bulldogs, GMHBA Stadium, 30 minutes before the next one, which we'll talk about.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with your sentiments there as well. The AFL do this a lot, and it's just like there's got to be a better way to do this, but they seem to be scared of just giving an interstate uh, derby game a clear air on a Friday night. Like it's just weird because I'd love to just sit down and watch Sydney GWS, which I'm picking Sydney and picking Geelong. Probably if Western Bulldogs are a bit fitter, I'd pick the Dogs. I thought about it, but I just think Geelong down at home. Dogs dealing with a couple of injuries. Geelong probably would just be too good on the night, but. Yeah, a great slate of games, and yeah, I wish I could watch them separately rather than having to like
Dual screen it.
dual screen it or something.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. I've when I saw this fixture come out, I was cussing up a storm. I'm like, two really good games, both gonna be on it, and with a half an hour difference. What the hell? Seriously, come on.
Hmm.
Like, and it just to go off to agree with you, like in my personal opinion, and this is not me kissing a South Australian's butt. I think the showdown should always be Friday night. I think the
Hmm.
showdown should always be the Friday night clear air. Nothing else, no one else going on. Let those two pugilistic two combatants go on Friday nights. Honestly, I will say that till the end of time. I think both showdowns should be Friday night footy. And
Mhm.
I'll stop it right there. And again, many people that heard the podcast know I have said that I think still to this day the showdown is still the best rivalry right now going because it doesn't matter where these two teams are, it's always a good game. So rewind. Geelong, no English, no Richards. Cats too experienced, Cats too good. I like the Cats in that one. As you said, you're tipping Sydney over GWS. Usually, coach goes GWS but I think the injuries, Charlie Curnow doesn't have to deal with Sam Taylor. Sydney's run and gun being at the SCG. I was like, my brain goes, is that really? Yeah, it is at the SCG. Wanted to be
Mhm.
sure that I didn't have it. It was in the NG Stadium. I think the Swans up and about. They're playing really well. Giants still fighting some injuries, still some inconsistencies like the Swans in this one. But again, this terrifies me because the Giants always find a way to play really well against the Swans in the Sydney Derby. It's not the Battle of the Bridge; it's the Sydney Derby. So I'll get my gripe out there. So Sydney for me on that one, but I think again, two cracking games. It's gonna annoy the crap out of me that they're both on at the same time because I don't want the Geelong Western Bulldogs game to be spoiled because I want to watch it, but I'm probably
Mhm.
gonna have to watch it on delay later, which really, really is annoying. So, all right, now we'll move on. People First Stadium on the Saturday slate sees the Suns take on the Bombers in this one. This is a perfect time for the Suns to bounce back against the Bombers. I worry the Bombers may have celebrated a little bit too much getting the win, so I like the Suns in this one. Hopefully it doesn't get ugly, but I worry this one could get ugly quickly.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely tipping the Suns. It is one of the games in the slate when I went through and did my tips. I clicked very quickly. You do have that thing in your head. You go, well, Essendon had a big win, but that often means that they have a come down the next week. Particularly the fact they have to travel up to a very, very good Gold Coast Suns team, and the Gold Coast Suns with the workhorses they have, they should just be
They'll
too
be
good. Um,
seething.
yeah,
If
yeah,
Damien
and
Hardwick
look,
is anything like I think he is, he'll be seething. This group is going. I worry for Essendon this
well,
first
that's two
quarter.
losses on the bounce for Gold Coast too. Like
Yep.
they want to get back to that early season form. So they
Yeah.
need to get back to it quick if they want to hang in the top four.
Yep. If Hardwick is anything like I think he is, this he's going to be seething. I do not want to be the Suns during training this week at all. All right, we'll go to it. We'll get it out of the way. Marvel Stadium sees Hawthorn versus your beloved Port Adelaide Power. I know this isn't easy. Tip head versus heart. Power Hawks. Who do you like?
The one I tipped the quickest. Yeah, I clicked Hawthorn very quickly. There is. Look, I will watch the game as I do every week, no matter what. But
Okay.
it will, it would be a miracle if Port Adelaide can get over the line in this one, just based on how Hawthorn are playing, how they're moving the ball. Yeah, there's no, yeah, like I said, a miracle. Particularly the fact it's away as well. It's not
Mhm.
even, we don't even have home deck, so yeah, Hawthorn will be far too good on the day, unfortunately for me.
Form wise, Hawthorn. How does Cal Shadir just go straight in for Mabio Chol, and then how does that mix go? Because Chol was absolutely playing super good football, so he's a big loss.
Mm,
Again, having Cal Shadir right there kind of makes it to where it may be a neutral. It won't be much of a change, but will it change the dynamic? Because Chol and Deer are not the same player. So it'd be fascinating. Does
mhm,
that change the dynamic a little bit? I agree with you, tipping Hawthorn, but I'm one of those that sometimes an injury to a guy that's playing really well can sometimes dampen the spirits of the entire group. Again, how does Kalsha come in? Does he come in on fire? Or does he come in and take a little bit of time to get back up to AFL standard because he's been playing in the twos? So we'll see on that.
mhm.
Tipping Hawthorn, but I think Port's a little bit more in this because, again, will the mixture up forward change a little bit? Again, Gunston is still playing fantastic football, so it may not come to nothing much.
Yeah.
But again, I'm always one of those, and injury sometimes can change the form just the tiniest bit. So keep an eye on that one. Back to South Australia and the Adelaide Oval as the Crows host the Saints. Curious one in this one. I know you're as a Port Adelaide supporter, it isn't easy. Who do you like? Crows, Saints.
Yeah, definitely head over heart picking that. I've tipped Adelaide, obviously. My classic. I support Port Adelaide and anyone playing the Crows. Obviously, I'll be happy to see a St Kilda win, but I think the Crows are just going to be too good on home deck. Uh, they're still dealing with a few injuries as we talked about earlier and whatnot. But I think St Kilda have had they're an interesting team. Like it's certainly going to be. I think it might. I'm glad it's a Saturday night match because I'm looking forward to watching it and kind of intrigued because if St Kilda can take some of that form from this week and have Naz have another big game and stuff like that, it'll be there'll be trouble for the Crows, but I think the Crows will just ultimately be too good. The one interesting thing will be, the Crows obviously Riley O'Brien. I don't know if we'll ever play for him again after after the other night. I don't want to shit on him, but
Mhm.
he was very very maligned amongst the Crows fan base as well as outside of that. And then McAndrew's been doing well, but I think his limitations will be found out, and obviously De Koning for St Kilda has been really really great. So that could be how that dominance goes, or if they can establish dominance there, that could
Mhm.
swing the tide a little bit, and then it'll result in the Crows' ball movement from the back, which at times they get going, but sometimes they can play too safe, and that can feed into creating some trouble for themselves.
Yep, no, 100% with you on that. That'll be an interesting one. I think the Crows midfield is better.
Hmm.
No Jack Steele, so I think it could almost even out a little bit like what happened with Gold Coast when Mac Andrew went in, that St. Kilda may win the taps, but the Crows may get the clearance. So it'll be interesting to see once the tap comes down, who's winning that because you do have a little bit more like if Naz goes in there, it's like you have Rochelle, you have Rankin, you have Dawson. You have Saligo. You've got several really good ball winning midfielders for Adelaide. With St. Kilda, you really don't. Like
Hmm.
Schoenmaker, does Philippou go through the center now? Like after Naz, where's your I mean, is Sinclair going through the midfield or is he staying off the halfback line? Like I'm much more confident in wins out of the center by Adelaide, despite the tap differential. So
Hmm.
I think it's one of those. I agree with you, but can DeConning take it out of the ruck? If he can do that, then I think you've got an advantage because I don't think Lachlan has that same ability to tap it to himself and then get it into inside 50. DeConning has shown he can do that. So I'll be fascinated to
Hmm.
see, does he try to do that? Does he try to win it straight out of the ruck himself and kind of take away from the advantage I think Adelaide has when it comes to ball winning, quick midfielder? So it'll be fascinating on this. Tipping Crows. I think the Saints are in it though. I wouldn't be surprised if this one comes down to fourth quarter where before we finally see a team separate. So fascinating on this
Yeah.
one. Marvel Stadium for the Sunday slate sees North Melbourne versus Richmond. This is one of the few times you can look and you go, this is a North Melbourne win for sure. Right?
That is what I thought. Yeah, I you did have that quick thought. It's like, oh, Richmond are plucky at times, but they just don't have the class around the ground. Where North Melbourne are starting to separate and show that they've got obviously midfield class, some class down back, and then obviously some starting to really find some class up forward with likes of Trembath alongside the established stars. So yeah, no, it was actually the first time in many many years I reckon that I've just clicked North Melbourne very quickly.
Mhm.
It's yeah, yeah. Hey, North Melbourne fans, enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I'm one of those. This does scare me a little bit because this is the young up and coming team versus the even younger up and coming team.
Hmm.
There's just more consistency. Toby Nank is the biggest loss. Like
Yeah.
he brings so much stability out of the ruck, and when you've got a guy that has not done it very often, and I think Tristan Seary is back, which is like even worse because it's
Hmm.
going to
Yeah.
expose it
Yeah.
even more. Like Sam Draper's a good ruck, but he's not a dominant ruck. Christian Ziri
Hmm.
is going to have a field day in this one. Like if I'm a fantasy player, I'm getting Tristan Seary for this game because this could be an absolute whitewash through the center.
Domination. Yeah.
And then you have LDU and all their midfielders just playing really, really well.
Hmm.
Georgie Wardlaw, this is a recipe for disaster for Richmond on this one. Like North,
Hmm.
this one could get ugly if North play to what they can. So I'm
Yeah.
fascinated on
I
this one.
did mean to bring up when we talked about
Go
it
ahead.
before. David King on Fireball with Kane Corns, like the Monday morning show on SEN in Melbourne, he actually mentioned how he reckons just because of how well that North Melbourne played, as to what we talked about on the weekend, that he actually said Tristan Cherry might have provided that difference to actually get North Melbourne in striking distance to win that game against Brisbane. So, to your point about your tip, that's how important Cherry is.
Oh, I agree.
is seen as well by obviously David King, and former North Melbourne player and fan. And
Yep.
yeah, no, he if he's back this week, then that's even more domination. I hadn't even thought about the fact that, but yeah, it was just a short term suspension. So yeah, there's just too much class around the field for North Melbourne against, even though they are a young side as well.
Yep, no, 100. I'm 100% with you. Like I said, if Jiri's back, it could be scary because Trembath and Coleman Jones have done okay, but they've been beaten soundly
Hmm.
by their opponents. You get Tristan Sheary back, scary to thought process, like especially against a team that, like I said, no Nan Curvis and a
Hmm.
youngster playing in the ruck. So it'd be fun. This one is intriguing. Cannot wait for this one. I think this one could be sneaky good. MCG, Melbourne, Brisbane. Brisbane coming down, Melbourne coming off a little bit of a humiliating loss to Essendon. Could we see an inspired Melbourne performance, or does Brisbane continue despite the injury issues that they've dealt with? Can Brisbane get their form going on the MCG?
I've tipped Brisbane, but to your point, I found it quite intriguing to look at because I think Melbourne have proved. I mean, obviously, I picked Gold Coast a couple of weeks ago. Melbourne, that was one of the few tips I missed because Melbourne obviously did the job against Gold Coast, and Melbourne with that early season buzz about their rebuild and their talent and what Stephen King's doing, they'll possibly be hurting after kind of losing that game that they didn't think they would, and Brisbane coming away from home, though they've obviously won two grand finals in a row at the MCG. So they're a team that's built to withstand whatever away trips they're dealing with. But with their injuries, and it's one that I tip for Brisbane and have reasonable confidence they can do the job. But it could be closer than some people might expect by just looking at those two teams on without giving it much thought.
I've done this several times. I said this is the upset I could see happening
Hmm.
purely on the fact that Brisbane again, they're still not at 100%. They're still vulnerable. I still think Cam Rayner and Zach Bailey are not playing up to their potential. I think if they play up to their
Hmm.
potential, they could be two of the best, again, that striker, forward, midfield, rotational type of player in the competition because they have two of them. Very few teams have
Hmm.
two of them. I mean, Gold Coast, when Petrarca comes back, have Bailey, Humphrey, and Petrarca. They've been missing the last couple of games, which I think has hurt Gold Coast. So that's
Yeah.
why the win by Sydney and the losses that Gold Coast have had, I think, contribute a little bit to they're not at full strength because Bailey Humphrey's been suspended because of the Richmond tackle, and then Petrarca destroyed his hamstring. So did yeah. So Brisbane have that. They have two guys, but they are underperforming. They're playing, but they're underperforming. This is a Melbourne side that honestly, I look at it and I go, holy crap. Like, this is a perfect opportunity for them to get that bounce back game after a dismal match against Essendon. Again, everybody's crapping on them. Okay. Maybe we jumped too fast on the bandwagon. This is actually kind of perfect because this gives them that game where everybody's going to go, well, Brisbane's going to win this one. The Melbourne lost to Essendon. How are they going to beat Brisbane? This is the perfect storm for Melbourne to throw another shocker, just like they did with Gold Coast a couple of weeks ago. I don't
Hmm.
think they do it, but I can see all the ingredients for a perfect upset here because Melbourne play really, really well. You've got Max gone there against Sam Draper. I think that's a win. I think that's a win for Melbourne. The only thing that the issue I have is that you have Ashcroft, Neil, Dunkley, is McCluggage back, Barry, so many superstar caliber midfielders. Melbourne doesn't have that. So
Yeah.
that's the one thing that scares me a little bit with that. Tipping Brisbane, but this is a perfect setup for Melbourne to pull the shocker. I'm going to keep this is one my eyeballs are going to be all over if I can. And then to end it, the Western Derby, West Coast, Fremantle. Unlike the showdown, sometimes this one is not close.
Yeah.
I,
I
I I
I, I
don't know
tipped.
about this one. Seriously, I don't know because I don't know what West Coast team. Do we get the West Coast from earlier that can throw some shockers?
Mm.
Or do we get the one that absolutely crapped themselves against the Sydney Swans? Again, the Swans are good, so there's a little bit of caveat there. This is a Dockers team that's as good. Do we see an absolute capitulation by West Coast, or do we see the West Coast step up for a Western Derby and see an almighty cracker out in Optus Stadium?
Yeah, I've definitely picked Fremantle because I think that's obviously a smart pick and they should win. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if you see West Coast, maybe even if it's just for the first half. It's one of those
Hmm.
games because we saw that back. There's even some showdowns back when Crows were really down the pits in 2020, 21, and the first half might be a bit of a battle, and then Port actually get to work and win by 50 points, and it's like it should never have been a contest, but that could be because West Coast have got enough players that are playing some in decent form. Obviously, got some some okay defenders, a couple of young stars that are burgeoning in midfield, and some great forwards as well. So they've got the guys that if they can just get a little bit of momentum, they can kick a score, and then they can make it interesting. The thing that'll be interesting is Harley Reid is obviously an incredible talent, but can be a little bit precocious at times, and depending on how he manages his emotions in a derby, if Freo go into the plan to try to get under his skin, make him make just disrupt what he's doing because he's played some great footy this year, but he's had moments where he does let the temper get ahead of him. How he manages that. But sometimes in a derby, if you do the right things with that, that can be a bonus as well. Like you can get your team going, and he's got a partner alongside him in the likes of Willem Dersmering and a few others there as now as well. Tim Kelly's played some okay footy, so yeah, there's a path for West Coast to be competitive in this game, but whether they've got the four-quarter effort in them, that's where I would be highly doubtful of that. I think the class of Freo and where they're at will shine through by the end of it. But if there's a decently competitive first half, that would be fun for me as a neutral watching it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I hope to see. But ultimately, Freo, I think, are going to be too good by the end of it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Tipping Fremantle, hoping West Coast give us a crack, give you a cracking match. But again, that Sydney game makes me very leery because this is a Fremantle Docker
Yeah.
side that's just as talented. I don't think they have the midfield strikers like Heaney and Chad
Hmm.
Warner. Brayshaw and Sarong are great ball winning midfielders, but they're not scoreboard impacting midfielders. Again, that is not a diss because it's hard to be that type of midfielder. But Fremantle doesn't have that. But Fremantle's forward line is just a little bit more consistent so far this year with Josh Tracy being able to clunk anything. I mean, he can come down with a cold in the middle of the desert at the pace he's going. He's catching everything. Um,
Hmm.
a miss is a little bit amiss, a little bit, but I think he get some confidence in him. You've got Shea Bolton, who's been incredible for them. I think he's been well. Isaac Dudley has been a great pickup for them as well. So there's more. I think there's more danger in the forward line than there is the midfield, unlike Sydney. But we'll have to see. But again, I like the Docker. I like the Dockers in this one. Like I said, hope West Coast make it a competitive game because that last game of the day, if it's a stinker, kind of flattens you. You become
Yeah.
a little bit flat as a biscuit a little bit when that happens. So, all right,
Mm.
Dave, that is it. That is all 9 games tipped. We've went through it. Another incredible chat. Again, you and I, we get to going and it's so much fun to talk. So I want to end the episode as we always do. Let me know how are things going at the Creed podcast. I know you and Jamie always putting out some great content. I know looking at my schedule, I think I've got Jamie coming up here in a few rounds. So it's always fun to chat with both of you guys because both of you guys, both footy nuffies, you love your footy and you love your power.
Yeah, the podcast is fun at the moment. I say that somewhat facetiously because
So, yeah.
I love doing it always, but going into this rebuild, we're kind of having to kind of figure out how to kind of talk about the team in a way that is like, we're not good, but the podcast is a couple of times a week on the Creedcast. If you want to hear some port gear and hear how we're dealing with, and we're both. We can be quite dry humored cynics as well. So we do it as much humor as we can while we're also dealing with the very real aspect of a team that's in a rebuild and go through the stats every week and whatnot. So yeah, the Creedcast on YouTube, Spotify, and everything. We're on there a couple of times a week chatting ports and just enjoying misery together, which it's a lot more fun to at least enjoy the misery with a good friend like Jamie on the podcast. So he does a
Yep.
great job, and it would be fun for you to catch up with him in a couple of weeks and chat
Yep.
to him about footy because he's an absolute nuffy for footy as well. Obviously for Port, but loves his footy as well. So
Yep. No, 100%. Both you two have been so kind to me. I appreciate both you guys being on the podcast and always you two are two of my favorites when I message because I know I'm going to get a response and I know I'm going to be like, "Yep, when you need me." So it's always great. So
yeah,
always fun. The Creed podcast has always been very good to me. Absolutely love it. So again, any Port Adelaide people, again, definitely worth the listen to incredibly good footy loving, port loving nuffies. Always, always fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Again, keep an eye out. More footy coverage still to come. We're getting into it. The state leagues have started. So, I've got state league coverage coming up here very, very soon. Some incredibly good football to talk about. So, that'll do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposal. We'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.